Hey there, fellow citizens of the internet. Welcome to the Moses Kabandana Podcast. Here, I try to hold conversations that I think that are worth having. And today, I have with me Daniel Dluzneski. I hope I didn't mess up the name there. And we are going to talk about a subject that I wish that we didn't really need to talk about. But unfortunately, the reality of the world that we live in is that school shootings do happen, and school safety is a huge thing. So I will let Daniel introduce his book and why he thinks this book needs to be talked about, why this topic is a topic that is important to talk about, and why he chose to write this book. So Daniel, take it away.
Thank you, Moses. I appreciate you having me on. The name of the book is The First 5 Minutes, a School Shooting Survival Guide for Administrators and Teachers. And the reason, well, first off, the title, because people say, why the first 5 minutes? The FBI data, and this FBI takes many years to collect data, so it's not the most recent data, but I still got to believe that that's true. Most of your school shootings, not the majority of them, I said the majority of them, not the ones that don't happen as often. Your average is 3 to 5 minutes of the shooting. Now, when you talk about that, when we say 3 to 5 minutes, geez, that sounds like that's very short, 3 to 5 minutes. But actually, a lot of them happen within 30 seconds. I mean, the one in Nashville literally was within 30 seconds to a minute that happened down there. So 3 to 5 minutes on average, your school shootings, that's why I named it The First 5 Minutes. And the reason also is the first 5 minutes I named it that way is because that's the time when you got to flip the switch. And what I mean by that is all the training and drills that teachers and administrators get, that's when you say, okay, I've gone into a lockdown. Now I need to flip the switch into another realm. I need to go into survival mode. I need to save myself. I need to save my children and make sure everything during the lockdown is done correctly. So that's the title of the book. The reason I wrote it is I went through, I would say, two of the worst school shootings that were close to me personally. The one that happened at Sandy Hook in Newtown, Connecticut. That is a town next to where I was born. I was born in Monroe, Connecticut. My sister currently lives in Newtown. She used to be a substitute teacher at that school. Not at that time. This was many years previous. But I went and visited the school. And when you go to look at the school, it is in this idyllic New England community on a narrow road, which it's not hard to get to, but it's off the beaten path behind a firehouse. In fact, you can't see it from the road. So it's like, when you go to look at it, it's like, how, what the heck was going on here? It's just like this insane person. So that was very effective. In fact, they just this past year finally settled on a memorial, which has opened just recently at that school. Done very well. It took we're talking almost 10 years now. And the other one was Parkland, which in my state, I'm here in Florida, the high school at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. So that was the one that I want to say ended my career, but basically ended where I was working. And the reason for that is I'll explain. Before that, the legislature in Florida let each county designate how they're going to run their school safety programs. After Parkland and what happened there, the legislature in Florida decided we're going to have police take charge of all school safety. And I disagreed with that, even though I'm former law enforcement. And the reason for that is law enforcement's reactive. They're not normally proactive. That's not their lane that they're in. So I disagree with that. Anyway, I left the job. And then, again, more recently, Uvalde happened in Texas. And that was just a disaster from beginning to end. And I know the media focus on the law enforcement response, but that wasn't the whole story. Locks were broken, doors were left open, the lockdown didn't occur correctly. The security guard, I don't know where he went, the principal wasn't there. It was just a disaster from beginning to end. So I thought, I've got to write something down. I've got to do something, just get this off my chest. And when you look at most school security manuals, they'll be like 200 or 300 pages of an administrative manual that's put on a shelf because afterwards, if there's an incident, the press will come and say, hey, do you have a school security plan? Oh, yeah, it's right over here on the shelf. It's just this dust-covered book that's 200 to 300 pages, all this legalese and what I call edge-speak. No, I didn't want something like that. I wanted something that was practical and easy to read. The book's only 77 pages long. In there, it's just the basic stuff you need to do. Also in there is I've got a blank school security plan. It's generic. Whatever you need to do for any school, from elementary to high school. The other thing I put in there was you can download these credit card size, I call them lanyards. You could put on your lanyard around your neck. You download that, and on there, it's going to tell you what to do in a bomb threat, what to do in a lockdown, what to do in a lockout. And the reason for that was when I was working for the county here, I had a gentleman that said, hey, yeah, I brought up these cards that were easy read cards in an emergency. I thought that was a great idea. And I have a doctor friend of mine who she says, oh, yeah, we use those cards all the time. She says, they'll come out with some color, code purple, code black, code orange. You can't remember every color out there. So they have these, but they call them cheat cards, basically. You look at the card, oh, that's what a code orange is. So I wanted these cards because, Moses, I'm telling you, I went through 9/11 when I was at the White House. Now, I had training, but when you go through something like this chaotic situation, this horrible situation where you're hearing loud noises, you're hearing people screaming, your mind's going to go blank. You're going to forget what day it is. You're not going to remember anything. And the card at least will help you if you're going through your lockdown procedure. And a basic lockdown procedure, this is something we can talk about now. A basic lockdown procedure is the school will make an announcement, and they will use just plain language. We are in a lockdown. And I always ask them to say it twice. Because in any situation you're in, I don't care if you're in the Kmart, in a grocery store, or whatever, an announcement will come over because you're not paying attention. You're like, what was that? What did they just say? Always say it twice, because you're going to get people that are going to be distracted about something. They'll only catch part of it.
Yeah.
We're in a lockdown. Say it twice. We are in a lockdown. This is not a drill. The door should already be locked. Your classroom door should already be locked. And I required that when I worked in my county. What's the reason you need the door open? Because some kid wants to go to the bathroom or something? No, keep the door locked. That's one less step you got to take. Classroom door is already locked. Usually there'll be a little window. They'll need that for the fire department, for a fire inspector. They have the little window they can peek in. You'll shut that. You put a cover over that. You'll turn your lights off. You'll put your phone on silent. You'll have the children sit on the floor, in the corner, away from the windows and away from the door. I've had it where they said, well, can children stay at their desk and put their heads on the desk? Okay, I'm not going to argue about that. It's okay, as long as they're quiet. You just have to be quiet. Do not listen to any announcements. Don't listen to the fire alarm. Don't open that door if someone's banging on it trying to get in. And you wait. And you're just waiting until this is over. Now, here's the argument that I've got from the other side. Well, now they're trapped. Now they're sitting ducks. So if a shooter comes in there, he's got easy targets for these kids. But there's no one that has breached a locked door. It's happened once, many years ago, at a Native American reservation. And that was because the person was targeted. They decided to shoot out the lock. They're not going to breach a locked door because it takes too long. And they've got a clock in their head, these people. So they're looking for easy victims. Look at the one in Nashville. Nashville was a perfect example. That person came in, obviously shot out the glass doors, and we're going to talk about that a little later. Got into the hallway and just checked to see if there were open doors. If there was an open door, they walked through it. And they were just looking for easy victims. You got a locked door, they're going to move on. You're going to move on to the next one that's open, or next hallway, or wherever, so to get more victims. Because for them, it's about numbers. So they're not going to breach a locked door. So that argument doesn't work. You're waiting for the police to arrive, and they're coming. And Nashville, again, another perfect example of police response. They got there. They did what they needed to do. They checked where they were. They were running towards the shooter, took the shooter out, and they were done. Those guys were heroes. They did an excellent job. So that's what happens during a lockdown. What I found out, what I found out in my county, what I found out in other counties still, is that at the end of the lockdown, they'll just make an announcement, say, okay, lockdown's over, everybody back to school. No, you need to wait until someone comes with the keys, an administrative person or the police, to unlock that door. Because an announcement, how do I know that that person's not being held hostage and told to make an announcement so they come out and start shooting more people? That's why I tell them to ignore the announcements. Now back to Parkland. Parkland, and there's been misconception about Parkland at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas here in Florida. Some of the media reports were, they've never done a lockdown drill. Well, in fact, they did. They did a lockdown drill a month prior, just 30 days prior, they did a lockdown drill. The problem was during the drill, they didn't drill for when the fire alarm goes off. So when the incident actually happened, they thought it was another drill. They're like, oh, we're doing another drill. So they were like, okay, we know what to do. We'll lock our doors. Well, then the fire alarm goes off. Well, to them, they're like, well, fire alarm goes off. We're supposed to get out. That's the requirement. We need to leave. So there was confusion on stay in lockdown or leave because of the fire alarm. And that's what got people into trouble. And the other thing was some of the teachers they interviewed afterwards said, well, we decided to run. We decided to leave our classroom and run. And they heard shots. So they heard the shots. They said, okay, well, we need to run in the other direction. The problem was what they were hearing was the echo of the shots within the building. So they're actually going towards the shooter. So this idea of the fire alarm in our county, we thought the better idea was you hear the fire alarm, stick your head out the door. Do you smell smoke? Is there anything to do with fire? If not, just lock your door and stay inside the classroom. So that's how to run a lockdown drill. And there's different ways of, not really different ways of doing a lockdown drill. There's only one way of doing it. But there's also what's called out there options training. And Moses, if you want to get into that, we can do that. Options training is, there's different factions out there. You got other factions that want to train you in something called Alice, Alive, all this weird stuff. And it's called Run, Hide, Fight. And Run, Hide, Fight was created for businesses. It was not created for schools. There was a video out there done by the Houston Police Department with Department of Homeland Security backing. Okay. And it's a very good video. Really good video. It's got this bad guy with a shotgun. He's all dressed up in black, and he comes in and he starts shooting people. And there's a narrator going, okay, if you can run, then run out of the building. If you can't run, then find a place to hide. And your third step is, if you confront the shooter, you have to fight. Mm-hmm. Well, for whatever reason, the school administrator said, oh, well, that might work for schools. Mm-hmm. So they incorporated it into some of their school training programs. Okay. Let's just do common sense. Let's say, hypothetically, you're a teacher, Moses. And as a teacher, which here in the United States is I'm sure it's a tough job everywhere, but especially here in the United States, after COVID, after all this stuff that went on as a teacher, now you got to get these kids back up to par, or at least where they were before, because they've dropped so much. So now you're a teacher, and you've been trained how to do a lockdown. You close your classroom door, put the kids on the floor, silence your phone, and you wait for the good guys to come. Well, now they're saying, okay, we're going to change things up. We're going to give you, Moses, options. You're going to have the option to take your 25 to 30 students, which let's talk about elementary school, little kids. You're going to take these 25, 30 little kids, and you're going to run out of this classroom, which you just left, was perfectly safe. You're going to run out of this classroom, and you're going to go down that hallway, and you're going to go out that exit and get outside and away from the shooter. So now you hear there's a lockdown. You hear sounds of gunfire. You hear people screaming, and you're like, I don't know what to do. Should I run, or should I lock myself in the room? Why would you be given those options? Because it's just going to confuse you even more. And why would you take 25 little children out into a hallway, which probably is going to see bad things, hear bad things, and try to funnel them through an exit door because you're running? You are going as fast as you can to get the heck out of there. So this idea of giving teachers options, to me, is just, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense. You're leaving a perfectly safe, locked classroom, or you're going to run outside and hope you don't get shot. It doesn't make any sense, but that's what they're pushing in a lot of these systems. Now, the what I have an issue with is high schools. Most of your high schools today are huge. They're as big as college campuses. And your high school students, more mature, they're adults, they can probably think for themselves. And that's what happened at Parkland. Some of them decided to run, which, okay, was it a bad decision? It could have been a good decision, could have been a bad decision. But overall, the idea of run, hide, fight doesn't work for schools. And I'll get pushed back on that. A lot of these agencies sell that. A lot of these private people that sell businesses like that will back it. However, in the United States here, the Department of Education, they don't recommend run, hide, fight. They don't.
Okay.
You lock down.
So let me for someone that just tuned in here, they might not know what qualifies you to give this in-depth analysis of these different shootings and scenarios. And I mean, aside from you having worked as in the Secret Service for like 20-40 years, and you've also designed school safety systems, and helped implement different drill scenarios and procedures. But give me like a 1 to 2 minute rundown of like your experience, so someone can be like, oh well, I can actually listen to this guy.
Sure.
Yeah.
In my county, I dealt with 100,000 students, 140 schools, very dense county. Yeah. And when I first started there in 2014, when I started there in 2014, we were just worried about fencing. And that was just outdoor fencing, which was like, 4 feet. And we wanted a minimum of 6 feet high just for fencing around the school. Now, I don't know when you were a child, you're a lot younger than me. When I was a child, schools were open all the time. You go in, go where you want. You can go play ball. You can come on the campus. I mean, you may have a janitor to come out and say, hey, what are you doing here? Oh, I'm checking this, that. But people walk around. It was no big deal. Nowadays, it's just, things should be locked up. Anyway, when I got with this county, we started with fencing and we moved into the interior of the schools. We were still using codes. I tell you, Moses, there are still schools in this country that are using codes. There's no reason to use codes. Use plain language. Yeah. Codes I don't know where they came from. Maybe it was police lingo. Maybe it was because of hospitals using codes. But they use codes in schools. And most of the time, it's code red. You'll say code red. Code red probably means go into a lockdown. Well, what if there's a bomb threat? Is there a different code? What if it's not a lockdown, but you just need to lock the doors because there's an individual in an area? Is that a different color? Is a fire a different color? I don't know. It's like, I don't know. It didn't make any sense to me to continue to use codes. And they were so adamant about it. No, code. Well, what if you have a visitor from out of town? What if you have a parent in the school? They probably hear code red like, okay, I know that's something bad, but I don't know what that means. So it was so much easier just to use plain language. But I'll tell you, I got pushed back on that too, because I had an elementary school. Now you're talking kids kindergarten through 5th grade. So when I went to this elementary school, I asked them, I said, what do you do for a lockdown? Run me through the scenario of how you do your lockdown. Yeah. So the principal goes, well, we put out an announcement, and our announcement is the pony is being delivered today. And I looked at her, I said, I kind of laughed. I said, what? You say what? Oh, we didn't want to upset the children. We don't want them to be all anxious about it. So we tell them the pony's being delivered today. Okay. So I said, well, if you got some maintenance guy here or some parent going, oh my gosh, you're delivering a pony today? This is pretty cool. No, that meant they were going into a lockdown. I said, no, you can't. No, don't do that. Use these kids. Look, I understand they're innocent. They are innocent, but they're not naive. They know what's going on. So just tell them we're in a lockdown. I'll tell you a story. And this goes back, I'm sorry, to my experience. I've been to hundreds of drills, hundreds of these lockdown drills. Some of them worked out great, some not so great, some ran perfect. You just never knew. But I had one drill where the children, it was a second floor, and it was you had to go through a couple glass doors, and then there were the classrooms were in the round. So it was like a U shape. There was probably 5 classrooms on the second floor, but you had to lock those outer doors. So what happened was a designated teacher took the key during a lockdown drill or during a real event and went out and locked those glass doors, okay? All right, they're glass. They're going to get busted through, but at least it's some kind of barrier. Then they would go in and lock their classroom. So kind of a double thing. Anyway, I said, well, if you're not here, what's plan B? Said, oh, the teacher next door will do it. Okay, well, what if there's a substitute? Well, then they were like confused. I said, okay, so what happens if you are shot or you faint or something? And there was a fifth grader in the class, quickly raised his hand. I know where the key is. I know where the key is. So I'm like, do all you guys know where the key is? Yeah. It's out there in the fire extinguisher box. I'm like, let's go. I took all those kids out of that class. Each of them took that key and locked that outer door and put the key back in the thing and went back in the classroom. And you talk about kids with like pride. I said, you guys all get a gold star today. Yeah. So these kids, they're innocent, yes, but they're not naive. They know what's going on. So I had another incident. We're at an open area school, meaning the center of the school was all open and the classrooms surrounded this center area. Yeah. And I had a principal who liked to trick things up because you don't want to think things, make drills constant all the time. They just become boring. So he took a bullhorn during the drill and he went out into the courtyard and he yelled through the bullhorn, lockdown drill's over. We're all set. Everybody back to class. We're good to go. His senior teachers knew it was a trick. And they stopped. They didn't do anything because you're not supposed to listen to any announcements. There were 2 substitute teachers there at this elementary school. Said, oh, lockdown drills. Okay, let's open the doors, open the blinds. And the kids said to those teachers, no, it's a drill. It's a trick. It's a trick. We're not supposed to do that. So they know what's going on. So it's this idea that, oh, these innocent kids, we can't tell them things because it might upset them. Just use plain language. So these codes, this idea of codes, out the window, and yet there's still schools that use them. I don't know why, but they just should use plain language. Anyway, I know your question was about my experience with this stuff. So when I started with Pinellas County, again, they were using codes. They didn't have any fencing. The lobby areas were all open. It was not a disaster. It was just something I knew we had to take step by step. When you go into a school, I don't care if it's an elementary school with 100 kids to a high school with 1,000 kids. Once school starts, there should be only one entrance, just one, that you can, as someone goes through. Once you get into that entrance, now you're going to let everybody in. There's also talk about, we should have a camera out there, so we have to buzz people in. Look, unless you're out there with an AK-47 dressed in camouflage, you're going to let everybody in, okay? Don't have a buzzer or a camera. You can have a camera out there, but you don't need to buzz them in. Let them in. Let them into the lobby area. And that lobby area is as far as they can go. From that lobby area, once they check in, then they can be buzzed into the school. The issue I had is the lobby area. Once you got into the lobby area, you have the desk, and a person will come up and help you. Okay, you need to sign in, whatever. Well, what happened in a lot of these schools, especially elementary schools, the desk was only waist high. So I'm like, this is crazy. Somebody could jump over this desk and you're in. You're in. Right. And that's what happened. I had an angry father who was in a divorce proceeding. He came and wanted to pick up his child. And they're like, you're not on the list, sir. You're not allowed to come pick your child up. And he got so angry, he said, I'm getting my kid. And he jumped over the desk and he ran into the school. I don't know if he's got a gun or not. I have no idea what is going on. So we raised the desks up. And we had to, Moses. I know people complain about this. We had to get tempered glass to come down so they couldn't. So it's like a bank. You know, when you go to the bank, you got a little opening at the bottom of the bank to put your paperwork through and stuff. We had to do that because that prevented someone from jumping over the counter. So when we first did this, we got a lot of pushback because when you walk into something like that in a school that used to be open, now it looks like a bank, you're like taken aback, like you felt. It's very claustrophobic. And also it's very hard to talk to people through glass. It's muffled and stuff's going on. But that's the situation we were in because we had this gentleman jump over the lobby counter. It's like, no, we're not going to deal with that anymore. So you bring this tempered glass in, you raise the desk up, have them sign in, and they're allowed to go in. If they're not allowed to be there, they got one way to go, back out. They're not going into the school. The other thing is, every outer door needs to be closed, okay? The problem I'm having, and I'm sure it's still a problem today, is propping doors open. You see doors propped open all the time. Why? Number one, they're getting a pizza delivery. Number two, they're out for a smoke. Number three, they're letting their buddy in who's late for school. Oh, you're late? I'll open the door for you. Come on in. So this was an issue that continues till today, mostly in high schools is when this is happening. And who's looking at this? The shooters.
Yeah.
All your shooters have been either former students or current students. They know what's going on. They know when you run your drills. They know what doors are open. They know what exits and entrances are during certain times of the day. They watch this stuff. They're not, again, you've seen, especially with the one in Nashville, they haven't allowed the paperwork to come out yet. But they plan these things ahead of time. This is not something that spur of the moment. Right. I'm going to get a gun and I'm going to go to school. No, this stuff is planned ahead of time. They're on social media. They're on the internet. They got stuff written down. They probably talk to it amongst their friends in social media. So this is something planned. So they're watching what's going on at that school. So they know all the vulnerabilities. The worst times at a school that I get most scared about: arrival, lunch, and dismissal. Because those are the times when your doors are open, or especially during lunch, you've got a concentrate of people in one area. And that's what, in Columbine, that's what happened. They're in lunch and they just started to shoot people up. But anyway, dealing with these drills, my whole thing of not only writing the book, which I mentioned in there, is, look, I can't have you drilling once a year. It's not gonna get you anywhere. You're gonna forget stuff. You just want to get it over with. You have to drill. If you can't do it every month, which I know is a pain in the neck, at least every quarter, at least train through these lockdown drills, because the more training you get, and I'll tell you, my 24 years with the Secret Service, when they tell you, oh, we have to go to training again, your mind is going, oh my gosh, we have to do this again. Because even if you're in the military, same thing. They drill and drill and drill. And you know why? Because it becomes, again, I said in the book, implicit memory. Memory that, let's talk about implicit memory. Implicit memory is something like when you get in a car, you put the seatbelt on. When you put a shirt on, you button your shirt, tie a belt, put your shoes on, tie your shoes. Are you thinking of how the process is for that? No. You don't think you just do it, because that's what implicit memory is. It's something you've done over and over again. You just automatically do it. And a lot of times, I was talking to a guy about a garage door opener. When you leave, you press that button to close your garage door. A lot of times, geez, did I close the garage door or not? You do it automatically. You don't even think about it. It's just, boom, close the garage door. So the idea of drilling for a lockdown over and over again, as soon as something happens like that, instead of going into a panic mode, you go into a mode of, I know what to do. You have confidence in that, I know what to do.
Yep.
Doors are already locked, windows, shutters down, lights off, silence your phone, sit down quietly, wait. Don't listen to any announcements. And if you forget something, look at your card. Oh, I forgot to do this. So that's what, to me, implicit memory is. And the more you drill, you're going to do it automatically. You're just going to do it automatically. So that was.
It kind of highlights one of the. No. It kind of highlights like one of my favorite part of the book, which, like, if I can summarize it, you said our safety depends on how we act in an emergency. So, but just before you move on to the next thing, in the book you talk about the difference between a lockdown and a lockout. Do you want to explain that a little bit?
Yeah. So a lot of schools will use what they call a hard lockdown or soft lockdown. There's different terminology. You'll have a lockdown or what's called a lockout. Yeah. A lockdown means someone is on campus. They're on campus. They are there to hurt people. They're on the campus itself. That's a lockdown. That's where you lock the classroom, no teaching, you're just locked in. Everything is locked up, okay? A lockout or a soft lockdown is basically, let's say, there's a burglar in the area, or there's someone the police are chasing someone who happens to be adjacent to the school, who happens to be maybe going towards the school, who happens to just be in the area of the school. So what you do in a lockout is you will still teach. The outer doors, everything will be locked up. The entrance, everything is locked up, so no one can get into the school at all. However, you're still allowed to teach. You just don't go from classroom to classroom. You just stay in the same classroom and you continue teaching. And you'll wait till the police say, hey, we caught the individual, or the individual's left the area, or it's over, they're arrested, whatever, and then you can go back to normal teaching. But at least and it's a confusion, because what happens is a lot of times the police will go to the school and say, hey, we're chasing this guy who shot his wife and now he's in the neighborhood. We want you to go into a lockdown. Well, I'm not going to argue with the police if I'm a principal. Okay, we go into a lockdown. Well, the problem is now they're chasing this guy. That could take hours. And you're waiting for the police to tell you, hey, is it over? They got other things going on. They don't have someone designated for your school. They just had somebody run in and say, hey, go into a lockdown. We're chasing this guy. See you later. And they're gone. I'm not blaming the police. But now if you're a principal, you're like, well, we've been sitting around here for 2 hours. Nothing's happening. What's going on? Yep. So this idea, yeah, okay. When I usually would have principals call me and say, hey, the police put us in a lockdown. Is it over? Can you tell us if it's over? This is 2 hours later. And I wouldn't blame them. I would just say, well, who told you to go into a lockdown? Well, so-and-so police officer came by. All right, well, there's not much you can do about that. I'd rather have them just go into a lockout, basically just lock the school up, but continue teaching. So those are the two differences. Lockdown means an individual is on your campus. They're actually in the school or on school grounds. A lockout is someone who is in the area, not particularly on your property, but they're in the area causing havoc or whatever. So that's the difference between those two.
Okay, man. I mean, I like I said at the beginning, I really wish this was not something that was part of the everyday talk. But unfortunately, the reality is school shootings do happen. So we need to be a lot more educated and a lot more aware. So what do you say to someone that's like, okay, every student that's part of a drill, they know literally every procedure. So then if they decide to be the perpetrator, then they know the system from inside and out. So like what do you say to that kind of objection? Or like, what's the remedy to that?
Moses, if someone is, don't like to use the words, but if someone is hell-bent on getting into that school and shooting someone, you're not going to stop them. They're going to get in. It's going to happen. You can't say to someone, I can make you 100% safe. No one will ever get in here and hurt your kids. You can't say that, because they'll get in. Look at the Nashville shooter just for an example. Now, I understand you had glass doors that shot out. Same thing happened in Sandy Hook. They had glass doors and shot out. That individual would have figured out one way or another to get into the school. They're going to get in, okay? What you want to do is slow them down. Outer door, fencing, outer doors, lobby area, doors locked inside. Just slow them down, because the good guys are coming. So this idea that, I can't make you 100% safe. However, I can make you 100% prepared. If you're prepared, if you are layered in your school safety and security, you're going to be okay. Now, I'm not going to say no one's ever going to get hurt. I can't say that. Look, school shootings in the United States, and also it doesn't happen just here, as you know. We just had two of them in Brazil. There was another one in Germany just a couple of weeks ago. And also, about the knife attacks over in China with insane people. But if you're prepared, then you're going to be okay. But school shootings alone, percentage-wise, you got a better percentage being struck by lightning or winning a lottery. But you can't say it can never happen here. Look at, again, Sandy Hook, Uvalde, Parkland, everybody, I'm sure said, no, I would never thought it would happen here. Okay, that it's still percentage-wise, it wouldn't happen in most schools. However, as long as you're prepared, and Nashville was pretty prepared. They only had that, why the principal's out in the hallway, I have no idea. But as long as you're prepared, as soon as it happens, lock your doors, which already been locked already, and just get prepared. But other than that, the pushback that I get is for the drills themselves.
Okay. Is it mostly because...
I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, is it mostly because they are time consuming? Is it a financial issue? Is it a combination of both? What's the biggest reasons for the pushback?
Good question. Very good. Yes, thank you. That's a very good question, because yes, they do take a lot of time.
Okay.
For a high school of, let's say, 1,200 kids, the best I've ever done is like 40, 45 minutes. That's the best I've ever done from beginning to end. That's a lot of time. Most of the other places, at least an hour, maybe more than an hour. So what are you doing? You're cutting into teaching time. And these teachers are under pressure to get their grade up, to get the kids' grades up, to get the school grade up. Down here in Florida, schools are rated A through F. You don't want to be an F school. You got to, bring that up to a B or a C. So, yeah, they're under enough pressure as it is. So what happens is during these drills is what you'll have is people that are pre-prepared. So I like to have the drills unannounced. I like that only because I can see exactly what the reactions are, okay? Walk into the school, you're in a lockdown drill, I'm a bad guy, go. And how long will it take them to lock down? In one respect, from my perspective, that's what I would want to see. From their side, from the education side and from the parental side, it doesn't work so well because, well, we're doing testing, or we're doing this reading group, or the parents weren't told that we were going to have a drill today. Okay, let's do this. Let's say to the parents, to the teachers, to everyone, except the students, we're going to be running a drill sometime this week. Okay, that at least gives you a week. So of those 5 days, one of those days, there'll be a lockdown drill. So at least you've got a little bit of knowledge. But of course, as you know, people talk. So the day of the drill, the teachers, we're going to drill at 1 o'clock. Okay, to pass the word, we're going to drill at 1 o'clock. So what they'll do is they'll pre-plan. Yep. Of course, you're human. I'll lock the door already. I'll close the blinds. I'll turn the lights off. I'll silence my phone. I'm ready because we want to get this drill over with because I got papers I got to, grade. Yep. And that's the issue that I have with this. I said, no, you can't pre-plan. That doesn't show me anything of what you would do in a situation. And I want to see how you react so we can fix things. Yep. I've had plenty of drills. No drill runs perfect. I have plenty of drills where you go and you find out when they made the announcement, all of a sudden, half the school's like, we didn't hear anything. The speaker's not working. Like, okay, well, we fixed it. That's why we run the drill. Or you'll run the drill and there'll be like 3 substitutes that don't have keys, that can't lock their doors or something. Like, well, that's why I like to drill more and more often, because you find out these little things. Or you'll find out a lot of schools, they have the old system. And when I say the old system, it's a big bank of all this stuff. And on it, there's a microphone. And you take the microphone off this bank and you press a button and you call on the microphone, hey, we're in a drill. Well, that's old school. That's like, oh my God, that's from the 1960s and 1970s. Nowadays, it's usually by the phone. You just pick the phone up, bing, 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 hit a couple numbers. Hey, we're in a lockdown drill. And a lot of times that didn't work. I've had a drill of a school. Now, I understand the drill, that the school was separated into 2 separate schools. And the person at the front desk, their job was to call the police. Their job was to call 911. Hey, we got an active shooter, okay? This is during the drill. So we run the drill. And I'm in this other part of the school and I'm waiting for the announcement. And there's no announcement, but everybody's locked down. I'm like, why was there no announcement? The person forgot to call 911. So I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah. That's the first step. You got to call 911. You make the announcement, you call 911. But so things, even during the drill, you got people that'll panic. I'll tell you one story, okay? And this I tell some of this stuff in the book just for people's reactions. I had an individual that I worked with. His wife was an assistant principal at a middle school, North County, in a different county. They had an individual across the street who was mad at his mother's boyfriend. So I say kid, he's probably in his 20s. He gets a gun. I don't know what type of gun it was. Anyway, he gets a gun. He goes after the boyfriend, tries to shoot him. Somehow he ends up in the street and he starts shooting the house up. Well, as he's doing that, the school is across the street. I guess he started spraying and one of the bullets hit the school, okay? They go into a lockdown, which they should have, because I don't know what this crazy guy is going to do. All right, so they got to wait till the police come. It was all taken care of. I don't think anybody died, but everything, on that end was okay. In the school itself, the middle school assistant principal was very good in safety and security. She knew how to run the drills. She was very familiar with it. She liked to run the drills. She said during this incident, which was a real incident, one third of her teachers froze. Didn't do anything. Blanked out. Just completely froze. And you're going to find out, no one knows how they're going to react. No one knows how they're going to react in an emergency situation. I was fortunate. When I was at the White House during 9/11, my training just kicked in because no one knew what was going on. You saw the first plane land in the tower, you're like, it was an accident. Then you see the second plane hit, you're like, uh-oh, now we got trouble. So we had no idea what was happening. None. But our training kicked in. We evacuated the White House, pushed everybody outside of the grounds and stuff, and just went into training mode, basically, listening to what was going on. So no one knows how they're going to react during an emergency situation. You just don't know. But if you've got some kind of training, your brain somehow is going to kick in. Oh, I need to do this. I know I need to lock the door. I know I need to do these things. Or have the card. Hell, look at that and just go through the procedure. So it's just something that I like the idea of more frequent drilling for the schools. Now, the other thing in the book I mentioned about is that you have to keep yourself safe. I had more than I can count the number of elementary school principals. Now, other principals, I'm sure, felt the same way. But elementary school principals, they're emotional. These kids are little. These are tiny little kids, and they feel like the parents of these little kids. So I would go run a drill at an elementary school, and we make the announcement, we're in a lockdown. Okay, what I would do is I would be the ghost. I would be like, I'm just observing. So I would walk around the campus to see how things are going. Well, the principal would go, okay, I'm going to come out with my people. I'm like, why? Well, I always do that. I said, wait a minute. So during a real event, you would go out? She goes, I have to go out and check my teachers to make sure the doors are locked. I'm like, are you armed? Do you have a gun? No, but I want to make sure my kids are safe. I said, then you're not going home that night. I said, you're going to get shot. You're probably going to get killed. And I tell you, they broke down. I've had principals crying to me going, no, I need to make sure my kids are safe. I said, no, you need to make sure you're safe. You have to go in your office, lock that door, and wait till the police arrive. And can you imagine someone with that personality? And most principals, I would believe, has an alpha personality. They want to control things. They're in charge of the school. They're the boss. I cannot imagine sitting in that office alone, or even if there's someone else in there, hearing all these sounds, hearing horrible noises, and you can't do anything. There's nothing you can do. But I said, you can't leave that room. You can't go out there. It's happened at Sandy Hook. It happened in Nashville. I don't know if they thought they were helping or they wanted to confront the individual or they thought they could talk them down or something. I don't know. But you have to keep yourself safe first. And I say the same thing to teachers. Make sure you're safe first before you can help someone else. That's the number one thing is you need to keep yourself safe. Now you can help other individuals. Okay? Second thing is armed special resource officers. We just started that in Florida this past couple of years. Special resource officers go through intensive training because it's a different thing than being a police officer on the street than being a security officer in a school. You are dealing with students, you're dealing with administrators, you're dealing with parents. It's a whole nother realm, but they get specialized training. Now, because of the pandemic, because of the defund the police movement, because of the Black Lives Matter movement, now all of a sudden it's like, oh no, I don't want police. No, we don't want anything to do with the police. And a lot of the students are giving pushback. What's happening because of the violence that we're seeing in schools, it's the parents that are pushing this, saying, no, I want those officers back in the school. Because Moses, special resource officers are allies. They are not adversaries. They're allies to the students, the administration, and the parents. And we're very proud to have them here in Florida. They do a heck of a job. And that's my two most important points. Keep yourself safe and make sure your school has special resource officers that are armed. I don't care what the budget is. Don't spend your budget on metal detectors. Spend it on special resource officers.
That's a good segue into whenever this topic comes up, it's never about how do we make schools? How do we practice drills? What are the things that can happen inside of the school to prevent things from happening or from getting worse? It's always goes straight to the divisive political issues of guns or no guns. And so the question that I have for you is like, as you were writing this book, because you don't go straight into this gun no gun thing, you're focusing more on preparing, training. What can any individual do when they are experiencing an emergency? Was this a conscious decision to not bring the whole gun thing into the equation? Like why did you? Yeah, like what was the mental process into that? Because there's usually no way of having a conversation about schools and shooting without talking about the political gun issue.
Right, I got you. Yeah, it was a conscious decision. I think I mentioned that in the very beginning of the prologue. I said I'm not going to be talking about the gun issue because it's just too political.
Yeah.
And again, it's something from my perspective, and it would be my opinion only that the guns have nothing to do with school shootings. And I'll qualify that. It's not the gun. It's the individual. All right. And we've seen that. We've seen it in Brazil. We've seen it in Asian countries where they use knives. In Brazil, they used Molotov cocktails and they used knives to kill people. And it's not the gun itself. Yeah, that's an easy way to get it. But you know what? You're going to kill people with something else if you don't have a gun. So I didn't get into that issue because, again, it's too divisive, too political. And in my opinion, you took the gun away, they'll just use something else. So that was something that I didn't even need to discuss because it's an argument. But sure, you can have an argument all day long about, what the issue of if we took guns away from everybody, would you just be victimized? So no, that wasn't something I wanted to discuss in the book because, again, it's too politically divisive and it's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to go anywhere. There's nowhere it's going to go. You're not going to get an end result of, oh, okay, we take all the guns away and now we're safe. No, you're not. You're not safe. No. Are you still prepared to what you're doing? Now, the other thing we can sort of get into is the idea of arming teachers. Here in Florida, the legislator did not broadly or specifically say you could do that. There are some counties, and my county itself said, we are okay with training our teachers to have weapons. So at first I was against it. And the reason I was against it, if you have an armed teacher in a school, doesn't matter, elementary, middle, high school, and something happens and the police arrive. Well, if I'm a police officer and I see someone with a gun, I'm going to shoot him. I mean, I don't know who's who. Are you a bad guy, good guy? I have no idea. So was it the idea of having the teacher put on a vest? Put something on them to show that they're a good guy? No. So I disagreed with having teachers, having a weapon. However, there are former military, former law enforcement individuals that are teaching that want that option. Okay. I would agree that option can work if they get the same training as a police officer. I mean intensive 10, 12 weeks, whatever it takes for them to be qualified with that weapon and qualify at least every quarter with that weapon and have the same training as police officers have. So you would kind of back off at how many individuals would do that. Some of them would. Former military, law enforcement, like, yeah, I'll go through that training, fine. I want to have that weapon on me in my school. The other thing is the police captain down here said, yes, we're going to allow teachers to be armed as long as they go through such and such training. And at first I was like, no, wait, that doesn't make any sense. What? No, I disagree with that. But when you think about it, if I'm a bad guy and I come to my county, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I don't know if this school has teachers that are armed or not. I think I'm going to go to this other county where I know they're not arming teachers. So it's perception. It's just like Moses, let's say in your house, you put a sign out front that says ADT security. You are under surveillance. We have an alarm. I don't know if you have one or not. The sign says you do. So I
Right.
think I'm going to go next door where I know they don't have an alarm system. So it's the perception. So I'm happy with that. If there's a perception that in my county that those teachers may be armed, if that keeps a bad person out, fine. I'm good with that.
And anything that keeps the bad guy from, well, anything that makes the bad guy think twice
Yeah,
before taking an action,
absolutely.
it's a good step. Wow,
Yes.
Daniel Dluzneski. Yeah, I had to pronounce that carefully. It's I think that's a good place to stop. Although we can continue to talk in depth more and more about this. Like I said at the beginning,
Hey,
it's yeah,
Moses, let me say one more thing. I
yeah,
know
of course.
we're on a time frame. A lot of schools, what they'll do is when they have an incident that'll happen either next door or on the news or whatever, they'll say, "Hey, the parents will scream, we need metal detectors." And the school will say, "Okay, we've got a grant. We're going to get metal detectors," and they'll wash their hands of it. Basically saying, "We're safe now." And the parents are like, "Whew, we got metal detectors." Moses, if I'm a bad guy, do you think a metal detector is going to stop me from going in and going in and shooting people? No, it's just what they call security theater. It's just a feel good thing that does nothing. It's a knee jerk reaction, spending too much money on security, on technology, which doesn't really help. It's the human factor. It's the human factor that keeps kids safe in these schools. So I just wanted to mention that one thing about technology. Don't fall for the technology thing that metal detectors are all of a sudden going to make you safe.
Training, 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 and more training. That sounds logical
Yes,
to me. So
yes.
the more prepared, the less that you have to think about particular actions that will keep you safe, the quicker that you will act, and the safer that you will most likely be. Wow,
Exactly. Yes.
wow, that's a good place to stop. That's a great place to stop. I mean, I wish there were no school shootings, of course, right? But
Yes.
the sad reality is they do exist, and you cannot choose when that will happen. You can only you can only be prepared as much as you can for when it happens. And man, I'm glad that there are people out there like you know, that try to, no pun intended, but drill these things into people, and in some ways, not in a way of just putting fear out there, right? Because there's plenty of that. There's plenty of people that are like, hey, they're
Yes.
coming for you, they're coming for you. So you're always like um, afraid of just stepping out and going out into the world. So how do you go into the world and try to, well, enjoy this thing that we call life, but be prepared for when the inevitable
Hmm.
takes place. So thank you so much for writing this book. And for those that are curious, for those that want to follow or buy this book, where can they get it?
It's on Amazon. Again, it's called The First 5 Minutes School Shooting Survival Guide for Administrators and Teachers. And if you just go in there and click in the search, The First 5 Minutes, it will come up amongst the first, 5 or 10 books. And you look for my name, just look for the guy with the weird name. And I'm also on LinkedIn, linkedin.com. You can go on there, look me up. You'll see my biography. You'll see the other podcasts that I've done. And there's an email in there. If you have questions, concerns, you can email me. I'll be glad to answer any emails. So if you have people that call in your show, Moses, just say, hey, how do I get a hold of this guy? Just tell them go to LinkedIn. I'm on there. And I'd be glad to answer any questions that they have.
Daniel Dluzneski, thank you so much for coming to the Moses Kabandana Podcast.
Thank you, Moses.